This is Pep. On the 31st of August, 1924, Pep walked into Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, one of the most notorious prisons in America, and was processed like every other new arrival. They took his mugshot. They took his prints. They gave him an inmate number, C2559. And in the intake log, under crime, somebody wrote murder, under sentence, life. Pep was a dog, a black Labrador. He was about 1 year old. And I need you to understand that I'm not describing a metaphor or a story somebody made up on the internet. The paperwork exists. The mugshot exists. A Labrador sitting up straight, wearing his inmate number around his neck, looking directly into the camera with the guiltiest face a dog has ever produced. It is, without question, the most adorable booking photo in American history, and it caused an international scandal that took the governor of Pennsylvania years to clean up. So let's start where it actually starts, which is not with a cat. In 1924, Eastern State Penitentiary was in trouble. It had been built a century earlier on a genuinely radical idea. Instead of the stocks, instead of public whipping, prisoners would be kept in silence and solitude so they could reflect on what they'd done and repent. Very Quaker, very idealistic. And by 1924, completely dead. The place was overcrowded, understaffed, and the mood inside was about what you'd expect from a 100-year-old prison-stuffed past capacity. Enter Gifford Pinchot, governor of Pennsylvania. Pinchot genuinely believed people could be rehabilitated, and he'd read something interesting. The governor of Maine had donated a dog to the Maine state prison to lift the inmates' spirits, and apparently it had worked. Pinchot thought that was a great idea. He also happened to have a dog problem. The Pinchots bred Labradors. He had more dogs than he needed, and one of them, according to the story, had developed a hobby of destroying the cushions on the porch sofa. So in July 1924, Pinchot offered that dog to his friend, Warden Groom at Eastern State. Not as a punishment, as a gift. A morale booster. A very good boy on a very unusual work assignment. And that would have been a nice, forgettable little footnote in prison history, except for what happened next. Because when Pep arrived, the staff decided to have some fun with him. They booked him in. Properly. Full procedure. Mugshot with his number hung around his neck, paw prints instead of fingerprints, and a completed intake record. They listed his known alias as, and this is real, a dog. They listed his crime as murder. They listed his sentence as life. It was a joke. Everybody in that building knew it was a joke. Nobody in that building considered for even 1 second what would happen if somebody outside the building read the paperwork and didn't know it was a joke. Because a local newspaper got hold of it, and a reporter looked at an official prison record listing a dog convicted of murder serving life, and decided that needed a story, so they invented one. Pep, they wrote, had killed a cat. Not just any cat, the beloved cat of the governor's wife, and the governor, enraged, had personally sentenced the murderer to life behind bars. And here's the thing about a story that good. Nobody checks it. It went everywhere. Papers across the country ran it. Papers across the world ran it. The Boston Daily Globe put out a headline about the governor's dog serving a life sentence for killing a cat. Pep acquired a permanent nickname in the international press, the cat-murdering dog. A 1-year-old Labrador who had, at most, committed crimes against soft furnishings was now a globally recognized feline homicide suspect. And then the letters started arriving. Because it turns out that if you tell the entire world that a governor has thrown a dog in prison for life, the entire world has opinions. Pinchot's office was buried in mail. Hundreds of letters. People demanding Pep's release. People calling the governor a monster. Letters arrived from as far away as the Philippines. That is roughly 8,500 miles of people who were personally upset about the legal status of a Labrador. Some of them sent him replacement dogs, which is why we have a written record of Gifford Pinchot, governor of Pennsylvania, complaining that he now felt, his word, overdogged. The Pinchots pushed back hard. They publicly denied the whole thing, calling the accusation a slanderous and unjustified attack on Pep's reputation, and the story itself a wretched tale. Years later, Cornelia Pinchot, the governor's wife, sat down with the New York Times specifically to clear the dog's name. She explained that the family bred Labradors, that Pep was a gift to the prisoners to boost morale, and that he had never killed her cat. That the cat, in fact, was fine. That there was no cat. There is something magnificent about a First Lady of Pennsylvania having to go to the paper of record to defend the character of a dog. And the governor kept insisting on the part everyone kept ignoring. Pep was not a prisoner. He was a resident, and by every account, Pep was having the time of his life. He wasn't assigned a cell. He picked whichever one he felt like sleeping in each night. He'd show up for roll call. He roamed the corridors freely. He was given an actual job, which was catching rats, at which he was reportedly excellent. He was, by all accounts, adored by the inmates and the guards equally in a building that had very little to be happy about. He was so adored, in fact, that in 1927, the prison had to put him on a diet because the men inside kept giving him their food and the cat-murdering dog was getting fat. Think about that for a second. In one of America's grimmest prisons, men with almost nothing to give were giving part of their meals to a Labrador. That's the actual story. That's what the newspapers had turned into a murder case. Pep stayed for years. Records list him as pardoned in 1929, which is a wonderful sentence to be able to say about a dog. He was moved out to Graterford, the prison's farm site, and he died there in 1930, still only about 7 years old. He's said to be buried on prison grounds. Now, honesty time, because I'd rather be accurate than dramatic. The evidence side of this is rock solid. The mugshot is real. The number C2559 is real. The paw prints are real. The intake entry listing murder and life is real. Eastern State, which is a museum now, has been very clear that the cat-killing story was a joke, and they point to preserved letters and contemporary newspaper coverage to back that up. What's softer is the fringe detail. Sources disagree slightly on exact dates. The sofa cushions come from secondhand retellings, and the popular claim that Pep now haunts the prison, that you can hear his tags jingling in the cell blocks, that's a ghost tour, not a historical record. But the core of it holds. A governor gave a prison a dog to make life inside slightly less bleak. The staff filled out a fake booking sheet as a gag. A reporter found it, believed it or pretended to, and invented a murdered cat, and the paperwork outlived the punchline, because that's the part that gets me. Everybody involved knew it was a joke. Every single one of them. And 100 years later, the joke is gone, the men are gone, the cat never existed, and the only thing still standing is an official prison record that says a Labrador named Pep was doing life for murder. History doesn't always keep the truth. Sometimes it just keeps the file.